Hello, everyone, and welcome to Webmaker training. We're going to give everybody just a couple more minutes to connect, so we'll start very soon. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce my two colleagues here, or actually I'll have them introduce themselves. Amira, do you want to get us started?
Sure. I've probably chatted with many of the people attending or watching this call, but my name is Amira, and I manage our Maker Party campaign here at Mozilla, which is, as you probably know now, our largest campaign to celebrate the web through teaching and learning in the months of July to September, to which you have all so gratefully and very excitingly agreed to throw events in this time.
Doug, do you want to introduce yourself? Is there a delay?
It's just that my office is in a converted carriage, so I'm happy to talk to you about anything to do with web literacy, and Webmaker, and all those kinds of things.
Okay, I'm Laura Hilliger. I'm going to moderate our little chat today. We wanted to start out by talking a little bit about our team. We are the Teach the Web team, and Amira and Doug are also on this team. We have some other great colleagues who are in our back channels and kind of helping us out by keeping an eye on different channels so that we know what you guys are asking and what's going on. The Teach the Web team at Mozilla is full of wonderful people who are really focused on helping people like you get out and teach the web using learner-centric methodologies and Webmaker tools, talking a lot about web literacy and just trying to get people to sort of see the web as an ecosystem rather than just a place to go and search for stuff. So Amira is the campaign manager for Maker Party, and as she said, she's probably talked to quite a few of you. And I am the training and curriculum lead, so I really focus on helping people get the skills that they need to then go out and teach the things that we care about. And Doug is really the one who is the brains behind the web literacy map, and he's doing tons of work around badges and assessment for the types of skills and competencies that we really care about at Mozilla. And Doug and Amira, you guys should feel free to jump in if I forget to say anything about our team. I'll just say that our team is super awesome. So we wanted to give you a little tip about how you can ask us questions during this. Oh, we just got Doug doubled. Hi, Doug, twice. We wanted to give you guys some tips about how you can ask some questions during this Hangout. So if you are watching on the Google Plus event page, there's a little button for Q&A, and if you hit that, then you'll be able to ask questions, and they show up right in our screen. So we'll be able to field questions for you, from you throughout. We invite you to ask as many questions as you want. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the learning methodologies that we care about at Mozilla, and then we're going to talk about what Maker Party is, and we're going to talk a little bit about the tools that we have, and then we'd love to see what kind of tools you guys are using, and then finally we're going to talk a little bit about the teaching resources that we have and give you some tips on how to actually run a Maker Party. So yeah, so let's get started. And as I said, if you have questions throughout, please throw them into the Q&A on the Google Plus page. So we're joined now by Fuzzy Fox. Hi, William. Another member of our team. And we're all here to help you, so please do ask questions and let us know what you need. This session is really meant to be a bit informal so that we can see what you guys are thinking about and help you directly. So let's get started. The way that we think about learning at Webmaker is it's really part of the connected learning ecosystem. So we are very interested in the work that MacArthur did around connected learning. Connected learning is a framework that MacArthur did a lot of research into, and it's sort of a way to think about what learning is in the 21st century. And along with this comes something that we've been calling making as learning. So this is the idea that we think that learning happens best when you're actually making and doing something that, you know, sort of forces you to use the skills that you're trying to learn. We're big proponents of failing often, because failure is a great way to learn, and also reflecting on what you're doing and sharing what you're doing. So we really have a production-centered idea about what learning is, and we use that to get people really involved with their own learning. So we come at learning from an interest perspective, and what we try to do is we try to figure out what people are interested in and then help them learn other skills while they're doing something that they're interested in. Doug, do you want to say anything about either of those methodologies?
Yeah, so I think the Connected Learning Alliance, as it now is, has an updated diagram which explains this really nicely. So the Connected Learning Alliance, if we can put a link somewhere, is just clalliance.org. And if you click on Why Connected Learning, it's got it used to be this kind of crazy fuzzy ball, but it's now a very clear interactive diagram where it talks about, as Laura said, things being interest-powered and production-centered and peer-supported, but also having things like being networked together and focus on academic subjects, but also having a shared purpose. So if you're new to kind of learning theories, if you're new to how to organize the stuff on which your resources and your platform and your maker party and that kind of stuff is going to sit upon, I'd have a look at that, because it's not a hugely deep dive and it's really easy to understand really quickly. So do have a look at that. I think we're going to talk about web literacy later, Laura, so I'll leave that for the moment.
Yeah, so the graphic that Doug is talking about is actually on the training website. So if you go to training.webmakerprototypes.org, the Exploring module talks about these different learning methodologies, and it also gives you some hands-on practical things that you can do to explore these ideas. So if you haven't yet been to the training site, definitely check it out. There's tons and tons of content there, and we've tried to pull everything together so that it's really easy for you to understand where we're coming from. I think another really important tenet of the Mozilla universe and what we care about and what we do, probably the biggest important tenet that we have is actually the open web. And that's something that you can read about on training, but just very briefly, what the open web is, it's what the web was designed to be, a decentralized network of different people's ideas. And the way that we work at Mozilla is really open. So we try things out and we talk about what we're working on, we talk about our ideas and what we're thinking. And I think that Maker Party is actually a really great time to get into working open. And so what you do is you literally just talk about the things that you're thinking about in an open way. So you post on blogs, or you enter into open forums and ask questions, and just don't be afraid to sort of share every different aspect of your work just from the beginning on. Because what that allows people to do is actually get involved at an early stage, which means you'll get more feedback and you'll have more people who are finding ways to connect to what you're doing. So it's really about building a networked community, and I think that we'll talk about that a little bit later. So go for it.
I think it's worth saying that the open web is something which, if you're my age, kind of in your 30s, you kind of grew up with that. Whereas I think people who are younger perhaps aren't used to everything being connected together and the expectation that you can just take your data from one place and move it somewhere else. So, what we're seeing increasingly is silos of content and people being in these walled gardens, and it being very difficult to get out of there. So an approach which is useful here is thinking about owning your own data and owning your own platform, and then pushing out content to social networks and various other places. So kind of having some kind of ownership of your data and thinking about not just in a one platform approach but a multi-platform approach will work well, just in case, for example, Facebook or Google or whatever changes or pulls a service, it means it doesn't affect your entire infrastructure and means of operation.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the open web is actually kind of complicated, right? Because it's tons and tons of different websites, and there are tons of different ways that you can sort of interact with the web as a platform. And at Mozilla, what we've kind of come to understand is that being able to work openly and being able to really contribute to the ecosystem that is the World Wide Web and be an active digital citizen is something that requires what we've been calling web literacy. And I'm going to let Doug talk about web literacy because he's the mastermind of it.
Is it possible for me to share my screen at this point, do you think?
Yeah, there's a screen share button at the top left.
Okay, well, let me just, and this is where you get into for 2 seconds while I share my screen, which is sharing your screen, which is sharing everyone's screen. And let's just have a look at this. So if you go to webmaker.org/literacy, what you'll see is a big long list of skills and competencies which we, together with the community, came up with as being the things which you should pay attention to if you want to get better at reading, writing, and participating on the web. So, you know, there's a big long list there. So that's the kind of text-based version of it. Next week, so by the time Maker Party comes along, the thing which we're currently testing out will be live on the Webmaker website. And here you can see that the web literacy map in a much more visual format is there as the structure for webmaker.org. So let's just take one, like privacy is a good one. You can choose any of these 15 competencies, which are in 3 strands: exploring, building, and connecting. So there's like 3 layers, if you see what I mean. There's the strands, there's the competencies, and then there's the skills as well. So if I click on privacy here, and again, this isn't on the live website at the moment. This is on a test server. You'll see that there's a big long page. Explains what privacy is. You can discover things, you can make things, and you can teach things as well, and we'll be badging those kinds of things. But the important thing to say about web literacy is that it's not about, for example, coding. There's been a huge push to talk about how everybody needs to learn, and certainly learning a bit of code and learning how to with the web and other bits of algorithms is important, but I think a more holistic understanding of what it is to be digitally or web literate is important. And these are some of the competencies that, with the community, we came up with. So along with coding and scripting, which you can see there in the middle, there's also things like collaboration and working openly in open practices, and security and privacy, and search and credibility. So do have a look through those. If you want to access them now, I'll just go to webmaker.org/literacy and have a look through them. And then this particular site, once we've ironed out the bugs, will be available next week, I believe.
Thanks, Doug. So yeah, so the work that we're doing at Mozilla and at Webmaker is really about sharing this idea that participating in the digital world is about more than just being able to code. It's about all of the competencies and skills that Doug was just talking about, and we've spent a lot of time really thinking about what does it mean to have an online life and a digital identity, and how do we actually help people be on the web the way that they are in the real world. And so a couple of 2 years ago, I think, we started doing a campaign where we basically aim to get people together to explore not only web literacy but digital literacy, and really come together in this big tent campaign that we have been calling Maker Party. And I think that Amira actually wants to tell you, what is Maker Party? You are muted.
I am muted, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think most people here kind of know the idea of what Maker Party is, which is this campaign to celebrate teaching and learning around the world. But I would love to dive more into what makes a Maker Party, which is very quickly everything. Maker Party are online events, they're offline events, they're small groups, they're families, they're friends, there's classes, there's big groups, and it's kept to be very general, mainly because there are multiple settings in which you can learn and you can teach people. Last year, I held a maker party with my mother, to which I taught her more about the webs and the code behind the sites she loved. So maker parties really allowing these opportunities for little times in which you can really take that community that you're in and work with them to teach them new skills or things related to web literacy, which is what Doug and Laura have been talking about. So yeah, so I really like stressing that learning and teaching happens in many, many different environments, and that you can definitely take all of these things together to create this one great event, no matter what the situation or scenario you're in. And I think we'll talk more about teaching kids later, but there's tons of different activities that we have and can show you that really allow this type of learning, be it in a classroom or friend setting or a small coffee shop or any of those sorts of stuff. So yeah, so Maker Party is really that small little point in time in which you can do this. The Maker Parties we have been talking about, many of the partners, yourself and myself, are really situated inside of library settings with the people who are coming by, or planning something specifically for your organization or the students you're already working with, or even bringing in events you're already doing. A lot of you have like 3D printing workshops, or things ranging from coding classes, Ruby, to other sorts of things. And these are all encompassing within that digital literacy framework that Doug really listed. Even privacy workshops, or how to teach what is privacy on the web and how to protect it, to general citizenship about the web. I love the idea of an organization recently that's teaching how to write spam letters in order to teach how to avoid spam, and what makes up an actual spam letter. So very generally and broadly, these are what make up the basis of an event, and it can be kind of what you make it. So we've got tons of lists, and I'm happy to talk more, and if you have questions on ideas you specifically have, to go through kind of ideas in which we can mold for your organization, or the kind of stuff you want to throw and teach at your type of events. But that's kind of the general Maker Party framework. And then we have guides online that teach you kind of how to throw them, and what the steps and learning materials you can use for throwing your events. So we have 3 kind of guides, one for small, medium, and large, because obviously events happen in all different sizes. And we have them online, and I will also be sharing those as well.
Thanks, Amira. I think that the important thing to understand about Maker Party is it's really what you make of it, and the tenet that sort of runs through all of the different Maker Parties is that people are sharing what they're doing. That's the thing that has to happen in order for it to be, part of this global campaign, because if you run an event and you don't tell anybody about it, then nobody knows about it. Mm-hmm. So we really encourage people to use the Maker Party hashtag and the Webmaker events platform, so we can see what you guys are doing and making, and to write blog posts or share pictures and show what people do. And Amira actually mentioned that these like small, medium, and large, and I wanted to give you guys a couple of examples of Maker Parties from last year. So on the small example, we had a guy in the UK, a 15-year-old, who wanted to show his friends how to make a website. So they got a picnic blanket and some food, and they went to the park and they built a website, and then he told us about it, and that was a Maker Party. We had people who gathered 30 or 40 people together at their local community center and spent the entire day, hacking on just random stuff that they made up at the time. And we also had a 48-hour Maker Party last year, where a bunch of folks in Romania got together and they spent 48 hours eating pizza and drinking like energy drinks and hacking on stuff. They didn't sleep, and they were like tweeting and putting out all of these pictures. And they were building with the tools they wanted to build with. And the thing that they were doing was getting together with a group of people and making stuff. and then sharing it on the web and really thinking about what does the web mean to us as people, as humans. And so and then on the large scale maker parties, Hive New York City has done tons of different maker parties where they've gathered multiple organizations from around the city to show what they're working on and to make things with whoever shows up. So there are guides on events.webmaker.org that can help you with any size. And one of the things that we recommend to do if you're feeling a little bit nervous about organizing a bigger maker party is just get a couple friends together and throw a maker party just to test out some of the things that you would want to do at a bigger event. That's totally valid, and I mean, we do it all the time. I'm constantly forcing my friends into checking things out that I'm working on before I present them in a more public way. Yeah, did we forget anything about, I mean, we're going to be talking about Maker Party the whole time, so if you have any questions, definitely jump onto the Google Plus page and enter your questions into the Q&A. Like I said earlier, we'll see them pop up, and we're eager to answer any questions that you have. If you have specific questions about logistics, we've done this quite a bit, so we're happy to give some tips, give some advice.
Yeah. Laura, I just want to say I love the examples of maker parties you gave, and one of the things I just want to point out is that, I mean, the campaign and all the events are called parties for a reason. Like, they're meant to be really fun learning environments to teach people, given that, you know, teaching doesn't necessarily have to be boring, and it can be really fun to learn and do things together, and to learn about this thing we love so much. And that's kind of what we really try to encourage and promote with Maker Party events, and definitely we're embodied in the ones that Laura just described, but very much they're a party. They're fun, and they're what you make of them, but they're meant to be exciting settings to learn and do more, and, you know, like, have just fun with your friends.
So we have a question that came in. It says, any tips for how to approach other organizations to partner with on your maker parties?
Oh, sure. I'll take this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a resource section coming out on our Maker Party site in the next week or two that gives you some media tips in terms of how to approach organizations, what to send them, how to properly perhaps talk to media outlets and stuff like that. Strongly encourage reaching out to people in your community, whether it be spaces or actual product or technology work organizations or such, to really combine and join forces. I mean, that can make it even funner, and that can help join together a bunch of resources to be able to actually implement whatever scale or size you want to do it. I love working with co-working spaces sometimes, so I can get together, tap that audience, or use their space, and more often than not, I find that these organizations are always willing and able and really wanting to join in on this kind of an idea to help celebrate it together. So be on the lookout for those resources, as well as don't be scared to reach out and then ask us if you need more help in reaching out to people in your community. We do have a very large Webmaker community here at Mozilla who are kind of like our bandits of Teach the Webbers. So I would very strongly, and we'll talk more about how to get in touch with them, but if you are looking for people that are in your area, it would be a great place to start and see if anyone is in your area or has a connection or network to an organization or people within that area.
I would just add, like, from a practical perspective, I think that when you're approaching an organization that doesn't know what Maker Party is, framing it in a way that they can immediately see what the benefit to their organization is. So you want to look for organizations who are kindred spirits, people who are also interested in maker ethic, and people who are also interested in making and sharing together. So if you sort of spend a little bit of time really thinking about the organizations that you want to approach and thinking about what it is that they care about, and then putting Maker Party into their perspective by helping them understand how it would be beneficial to them and their community, that's a really good way to sort of get people in the door.
And I think people really value kind of some third-party objective, this is a good idea, anything like that that you've got available. So, if you're going to a bunch of librarians, then you find somebody who is like a super followed librarian like Buffy Hamilton, and you see what she's written about coding and kids learning web literacy and that kind of stuff, and you have that up your sleeve and link to that kind of stuff when you're inviting people. So getting to know who people respect and who people value whilst you're making that invitation or as a follow-up is a really valuable thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So we have another question. Can a professional gathering like a tech conference be a maker party? Yes, definitely. Have you guys heard of the Mozilla Festival? It's a gigantic, the mother of all maker parties. So if you are at a tech conference and if people are making and learning and sharing together, that can absolutely be a maker party. I mean, the idea is really that the participants have something to do at a maker party. So if the tech conference is really just sage on the stage and just the quote-unquote famous people talking at the audience, that doesn't exactly fall into the methodologies that we care about. But if you guys are having workshops at tech conferences or you're making and learning together, I definitely think that counts.
And I'd add that the small water cooler hacking sessions that you always find at tech conferences, they have to count because you're working on something awesome there.
Yeah. So.
And maker parties can, and events like this type of ideas can exist within other events. So I know many of us have gone to conferences and we've thrown our own maker parties within them, and they're really fun, interactive ways to kind of, get things going within an event and do some exciting stuff. So we're always encouraging people to also think along those lines as well as sharing those on the map.
Cool. So we have another question. I love the questions coming in, so please keep asking questions. Any tips on adding a disclaimer about the content, i.e. YouTube videos, that people are using to remix and perhaps pass off as their own? Just the librarian and me wondering aloud. That is a great question. So we do try to help people understand what open licensing is and help them be good at attributing. We have worked on some tools in the past that are designed to make this easy. And we do have friends and kindred spirits in places like the School of Open, which is the Creative Commons online training presence. It's called the School of Open, and they have lots of resources on how to attribute. So if you don't know how to do that, you can learn through the School of Open, or of course Webmaker. We have resources on that too that we've made in partnership with Creative Commons. And then another interesting note, if you're using Popcorn Maker for your YouTube videos, because Popcorn Maker is actually not downloading or uploading any of the videos, the YouTube link in the code could be considered attribution, but really we try to get people to be concerned about how to do attribution and actually do that properly. So I think that that's a great question, and I think that the tip is to help people who are making things and remixing for the first time understand how important attribution is and bake that into the lessons that you're teaching at your maker party.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Laura, because really because everything's being pulled in on the fly, including really in Thimble, you're pointing out to where images are stored elsewhere on the web rather than being hosted on Webmaker. If somebody said, I made this YouTube video, I made this image, it would be trivially easy to point out that that's not actually the case.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to, in the session, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Webmaker tools, and that seemed kind of a good segue. So Webmaker has been working on a couple of different tools that are designed to make exploring web literacy easy while also, really thinking about that production-centered approach. And we have 4 tools. Which if you've seen the tools video, then you've got a brief introduction into those, and there's lots of resources at training.webmakerprototypes.org. that you can use to learn more about those tools. My suggestion is to go and play with them. But we have these 4 tools. The first one, the X-ray goggles, is really about sort of revealing what the structure of the web is. And then we have Thimble, which is a browser-based editor, which allows you to write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in the left side of the editor, and then you see the web page that you're making in the right side. We have Popcorn Maker, which is the media-friendly remixing videos, imagery, and sound web app, which is awesome and fun. And again, if you've seen the training videos, you've seen Popcorn Maker in action, because I actually use that to make all of the videos that you guys got sent. And then our newest tool, which is a prototype, is, well, it's not a prototype, it's in beta, is called App Maker. And App Maker is trying to make it easy for anybody to make their own mobile applications. So really trying to take away the heavy lift from an engineering perspective, and put the power of app making back into people's hands, or into people's hands for the first time. So if you guys are using specific tools, we'd love to hear about them. Maker parties use Webmaker tools, but they also use a lot of other tools. I mean, we had maker parties last year that were all about Scratch, and maker parties last year that were all about Arduino, and just a bunch of other tools. So if you have a favorite tool and you want to run a maker party around that, by all means, please do. We'd love to hear what you guys care about and what you're doing. So I see more questions popping up, which I love, because it means that I get to read somebody else's text instead of making it up on the fly. We have a question from Diego that says, can my maker party include technology, art, photography, stop motion, etc.? We want to teach kids and teenagers how to make useful things like coding, taking pictures, and uploading them to a blog, i.e. content for the web design, building robots, drawing, etc. Well, that's an easy question. Doug, you want to answer it?
Yeah, I think this is a perfect example of how things which wouldn't usually be considered like techie are actually perfect for the web literacy map. So if you look at some of the things there, I mean, you've mentioned like content for the web. If you look at the web literacy map, like composing for the web is one of the competencies on there. Web design, we've broken it down into, composing for the web, HTML, that kind of thing. Also design accessibility through CSS, thinking about your users, building robots, coding and scripting, drawing, prototypes, kinds of things, fit in really nicely to the web literacy map. To map out all of the things that you want to do, take the web literacy map and then just see how they fit in. And if any of them don't fit in, then let us know, because we need feedback on the web literacy map so we can make it better.
Great. So we have another question. What are some possible challenges that might come up in holding a maker party, and what can we do to prepare for them? Excellent question. There are a lot of things that can, quote unquote, go wrong, but as I said at the beginning of this webinar, we really embrace failure at Mozilla, and we learn from our mistakes. So as somebody who has thrown a lot of maker parties, one of the things that I can say for sure is that something unexpected is going to happen in like the first 10 minutes. Maybe your Wi-Fi goes out and you just have no access to the web, and all these people are showing up and you're just sitting there like, what do I do? So there are going to be technical challenges. You might, I've thrown a maker party where I did all of this promotion and stuff, but I guess I threw it at the wrong time because literally only one person showed up, and I felt so distraught by the fact that I had put so much work in and nobody came. So there are a lot of different kinds of things that can happen. It's pretty impossible to cover the range, but I can definitely give you some tips on what to do in planning. So when I plan a maker party, I always have a plan B for the technology fail, because that's one that is pretty common wherever you are. Wi-Fi is always something. You see my colleagues nodding enthusiastically. Everybody knows that this is an issue. But when technology fails, I am a huge proponent of having a backup plan, and there are tons of learning activities that you can do that don't require the internet at all. And so what I like to do is make sure that I have a backup plan that includes things like that. And luckily, at webmaker.org, if you search for offline, you can find activities like that. If you search for icebreakers, you can find other activities that don't necessarily use technology. And you can actually set up sort of local environments to kind of get around some of those things. So for example, if you were going to be running a maker party where you wanted to teach HTML and the internet is just crashing and burning and broken, you can open up a text editor, teach people syntax stuff, and when the tech comes back up, then you can, you know, upload things or copy and paste things. So I think that having a backup plan for potential problems is a really good idea. And then for some of like the more social, like this idea that I threw a maker party and nobody came, well, one person came, I just downshifted. I shifted my expectations, and I had an amazing afternoon talking about Mozilla, talking about technology, talking about education and technology, and sharing ideas with the one person that came. And I considered it a maker party too, because we got out tons of markers and we made a map of our minds, and we just kind of sat there and had a conversation. And it was, you know, it was a really pleasing experience, despite the fact that I was so distraught in the moment. So I think that the big lesson about challenges is to be flexible and not be hard on yourself when the problems arise, because they absolutely will, and to plan well. If you sort of go towards Maker Party with this idea that it's not going to be perfect, then you won't be disappointed when it's not perfect. And most Maker Parties aren't perfect. They're sort of designed to be a party. What party is perfect?
I think thinking about having more than one event might be a good thing to do. Also, you mentioned about kind of tech fails. Like the internet, if you're doing a web-focused event, you can do offline activities, and that's a really good thing to do. But also, think about the ways in which you can use the technology that people are bringing along with them. So my phone, lots of people's phones, allows you to have like a Wi-Fi hotspot based off your 3G or 4G connection. You can also buy, when we were in Helsinki a couple of months ago, we didn't know what the Wi-Fi was going to be like, so we bought one of those MiFi things where you can connect up to maybe 12 people. So think about things like that, and think about every part of your maker party, just like a teacher would do with a lesson, and think, what would happen if this went wrong? And just, you don't even have to like buy anything or make anything. You just need to know what you would do if that happened. It's like a contingency plan, almost like a risk assessment. And it doesn't have to be boring. It can be like, we play a game, we go outside, we do some fun stuff. Like, it can be something completely different.
Yeah, I like what you said just now, Doug, about actually having more than one event. I have definitely found that playtesting my events, so basically having an idea for a bigger event or a different event, and then getting some friends together so that I can, bounce ideas off them and actually test the activities that I want to run. I do that all the time, and I think that it's a really valuable learning experience. I think I talked about that a little bit in the facilitating video, the value of actually trying things out in that way. So I definitely recommend not being afraid to get your friends together and ask them to help you out. It'll just make the day go a lot smoother because you'll have had a little bit of experience in your own maker party, and it'll make you feel more comfortable for whatever the quote unquote bigger maker party is. So we have about 20 minutes left. I definitely want to talk a little bit about the teaching kits that we have at webmaker.org. I want to explain to you what they actually are, and just kind of maybe share some of our favorites or answer any questions that you have if you're looking for content to teach. So the teaching kits at webmaker.org they're really just collections of activities and resources that you can use to run a maker party and to teach the web. And they're created by an entire community of people who are out there, and they're trying things and they're documenting things, and there's some really great activities that you can sort of remix to be about something else. So I definitely encourage everybody to check out the teaching kits video that I put together. I did some screen sharing in it where I was really showing what each and every piece of the teaching kit is. And for me, the thing that I do for every event that I run is I make a teaching kit that documents what I plan to do in the event. So it's called backwards design. I start with what I actually want the outcomes of the event to do. I write those out as being learning objectives in my teaching kit. And then I go to webmaker.org and I find activities either that I've written or that other people have written, and I sort of scaffold them through my teaching kit so that I have a plan that I can follow. So I definitely encourage people to use the teaching kits as a planning mechanism for event agendas, just because the way that the kits are built is very modular, and you can actually see what other people have done and what other people have had success with. And I think it's a really good way not only to plan, but also to document what you're doing. So when I make a teaching kit, after I put everything together, I'll run my maker party, and then I'll come back and I'll take a look at what I did differently, what sort of problems came at me, or what activities did I not have enough time for, and then I will rework my teaching kit so that hopefully the next person that is using it has a better experience, or understands that certain activities might take more time. So there's tons of great examples, and as I said, because they're all modular, you don't always have to write your own activities. You can borrow from other people, or you can remix them to be more specific to what it is that you want to teach. So definitely check out that video that Amira sent everyone, and that we will include in the archive of this video. That's kind of meta. Yeah.
I also, Laura, just to point out, I've been adding links in the Google Plus invite page if anyone's looking there. So when Laura says offline teaching kits, I posted one there. I put a couple examples of other teaching kits right now. So unfortunately, I'm not able to chat within this video with everyone. So I'm putting links there for people to perhaps check out later, as long as we'll be able to share a lot more things later on as well.
So MakerBox is asking us a question about teaching kits. Is there a way to download teaching kits so that they can be referenced even if you're holding an event in a space without internet? Absolutely. So teaching kits are web pages. So you can download a teaching kit the same way that you would download any other web page by going to File, Save As. The teaching kits are easy to print. They actually have CSS attached to them, which will make them printable and pretty. So what you can also do if you want to have all of the style and you want to have it look really nice, then you can, in your browser, go to File, Print, and then you can save it as a PDF and then print it from there. I see Fuzzy. Do you want to add something?
A little tip on that as well. You can get slightly, so if you save the page, if you put an underscore on the end of any of the URLs for those kits when you save the page, it means that you get absolutely every single bit of content. It gets rid of any extra wrapping stuff that we have on there, and is just that kit on its own with none of the extra details. Just kit, your activities that you put in there, and the stuff you're interested in. So I'd do that, and then I'd save the page or print the page as PDF, and both times it comes out beautifully formatted and easy to read. So.
That's a great tip, Fuzzy. I think that I'm going to ask you to document that tip so that we can share it along with this video and also on the Google Plus page. Not now, but later. I didn't know that one. I was always just fumbling around doing it my own way. But yeah, the other really cool thing about the teaching kits is that they are responsive. So if you have a phone or a tablet and you're not actually, if you have a 3G network or you have a mobile internet but you're not using internet at the event, a lot of times what I'll do is actually just cache the teaching kit I want to use on my phone, and then I kind of have it here so I can check back and make sure that I'm still, within my time block or actually following the agenda the way that I thought that I wanted to, or the way that I designed the kit to be. So I definitely recommend having the teaching kits with you when you're running an event, because it just makes it easier for you to know what's next, and it takes away some of the stress of, figuring out what learners are going to want to be doing next. If you start to see that people are, getting bored, or if they are no longer very engaged with whatever they're working on, then you can kind of move to the next thing in the next activity earlier, or if people are really having fun, then you can make it later. And so I think having that in a way that you can view is actually a really, really smart thing to do. It's a good question. So what other kinds of questions do we have? We have about 15 minutes left, and I'm sure that we could all ramble on the entire time. Maybe we should say a little bit about sharing out after your event. What do you guys think? Everybody knows.
Yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it, Doug.
I was going to say, it's not, so sharing after your event is one thing. You should definitely amplify stuff. But to me, it's a three-stage thing. Like, you can't tell people enough what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. Like, preparing people for something that's going to happen, be it a launch, be it a party, be it anything, so that when it happens, people don't need to know what the context is. They're already ready for it. And then, right from the start of the event, making people know that this is the hashtag if you're on social networks. It's okay to take pictures here but not there. Or could you sign this form to make sure we can use these for publicity, or whatever it's going to be. Like, you need to have thought of that in advance. And then afterwards, think about the place in which people can curate all those photographs together. So often people put them on Flickr. Some people you might want to put them on Instagram. Just agree how you're going to tag those things. It could just be Teach the Web, but you might have a specific one for your event. So how are you going to curate all the artifacts from there? Another thing you can do is you can use an Etherpad, which you may or may not have seen before. Etherpad or Google Doc or anything like that will allow anybody to access and put their links in of things they've made, photographs they've taken, all of those resources. And then don't just leave it there. Have somebody write it up, like curate it in a way which tells the story of your event. So there's tools which do this, like Storify, which allow you to pull in photographs and tweets and social media updates to tell the story along with the text that you enter. But I would recommend, if you've got an organizational blog or an official channel to do stuff like that, I would suggest that you sit down and spend half an hour of pulling in lots of people's stuff and telling the story of your event. And then the ask is in your network to share that out so that the impact of your event is amplified way beyond just the people who happen to be able to attend it.
On that point about amplifying, we have a question saying, I'm sure there's going to be a list of all of the events that are happening on which day and at what time, but where do I find this? I definitely want to make people aware of events.webmaker.org. We have a huge database of events. You can add your events to that database. You can find events that are happening in your area. You can write descriptions. You can tell people about your event, and you can use the URL that when you make an event on events.webmaker.org, you can then share that URL out. So you can put all of that information into that one page, and everybody will be able to find it. So if you have a specific hashtag you want to use, or if you already know which teaching kit you want to use and you want to share that in advance, you can put all of that stuff into events.webmaker.org, and then you can use that URL to share it out. And the other really cool thing is that you can find other people's events. So if you're kind of saying, okay, I know I want to have a maker party, but I don't know what I want to throw my maker party on, go explore the events platform and check out what other people are doing for Maker Party, what they're what kind of events they're doing. There's tons of crazy stuff in there that is really interesting and engaging. And finding those events and sort of using them to inspire your own planning is great. Oh, and if you live in a place where there are other people who are throwing maker parties, then this is also a great way to find out who in your local community is a kindred spirit by checking out the events platform and seeing who's put stuff in there. So yes, I see Amira smiling. I think she's glad that I'm pointing people to the events platform. I love seeing people putting their stuff in there. It's just so interesting and entertaining.
I was just going to say, and put it on the actual page, But the email that contained the list of RSVP dates for the training that you are currently in, so I know you read it, at the bottom there was a link to that events page encouraging all of you to get your events in there sooner rather than later, mainly because everyone else can see what you're doing and you can share with everyone else and check out what they're doing. So it's definitely beneficial to do that and put as many as you want or can in there.
So there's a statement, not really a question, from Sandra who says, we want to connect with another maker party that's happening at the same time so that the audience understands that this is a global link and that it's happening all over the place everywhere. That's an excellent idea. I would encourage you to find that other maker party that's happening at the same time in advance. So, you know, and actually contacting the organizers and telling them that you want to do that so that you guys can set up the proper tech and, you know, really could maybe even connecting via video or a Google Hangout, even if you just have like one computer that's just sort of giving an overview of your maker party. And if they're, you know, on the same channel in a Google Plus, for example, and if you're on a Google Plus broadcasting, then the whole world can see it. So yeah, I think that's a really great idea, and
that can be a lot of fun as well.
Sorry?
So that can be a lot of fun as well. So an event that happened here, they were doing like a birthday celebration of the organization that they were at, and they literally had a computer on a table in the corner of the room with a talk to us in I can't remember where it was. I think it was Liverpool. Talk to us in Liverpool. I'm currently in London, so there was a computer, and people would cluster around the machine and talk to each other over it, and it was really kind of interesting how people were interacting with each other, even though they were opposite ends of the country almost.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I know people like to like the half head, like lean in kind of thing. Okay, what are you guys doing?
And especially for things like that, Sandra, feel free to get in touch with me because I can help you also locate people maybe in your area or doing things around the same time and kind of help make sure that we actually can implement ideas like that if you're interested.
So we have a couple more questions.
Swag.
Yeah, we're getting into the swag question. So the first one, we would love to have some swag from Mozilla. So for those of you who are getting jargon bombed right now, swag is marketing materials and like t-shirts or bracelets and that kind of stuff. To promote the event and to give away to the participants. How do we get it?
Diego, I'm so sad at the second part of your question over there. I'm so sorry you did not receive it in the past. The quick answer is that we currently are relocating to a new swag store, and we've ordered some super exciting Maker Party swag for this year. Given that we are doing a new store and a new process for that, we are just a bit delayed in getting that ready to be sent out to people. But we are promising that we're doing it as quickly as we can, and we'll have it available for beginning to mid-July for your events that are taking place throughout then to September. So it is in the process. You won't be able to order it before then because we're currently working on that, but we will be sharing it with the greater community and all of the partners at the time in which it is put up. And trust me, I care about gear as much as anyone else, and we're trying our best to get that done quickly.
So Kirsten has a question. There's something on your site or email about providing content for publicity. Is this additional to the events page? So the events page is a way for us to see where maker parties are happening and also try to connect people and so that people can see what's happening in their local area. And then the providing content piece is really this idea about sharing what you're doing and working in the open. So just having a event title and a little description doesn't, I mean, it's great and it's really helpful, but what's even more helpful is when we can actually see the global story by seeing, you know, what people are doing, what people have made. So we really encourage people to plan in the open and have their maker parties in the open and share in the open as well. So that's really about, you know, do you have a blog post? Are you tweeting? How are you actually sharing what you're doing with the global community? because there's a lot of people that can learn from what you're doing, and a lot of people in the world who are interested in what your organization, your take on Maker Party, and also, you know, how you run your Maker Party and the content that you use in it. So I think that the note on our website or email, wherever that was, about providing content for publicity is really about being open with what you're doing so that we can tell the global story.
Sorry, I put a hand there because I think that might be specifically something I mentioned, encouraging people to upload their events. +1 to everything. Sorry, I agree to everything Laura said, but mainly for publicity stuff, we work with a lot of press agencies and media outlets to really help get all of the partners' events on some sort of media outlets or other sort of press outreach that we do. So I mentioned to many people, and I mentioned this in an email, getting your events on the map is a good way for us to show our PR agency and others exactly where events are, and then hopefully generate content and media and stuff for you based on that. So it's super. It's very related to the events page, but it's also in regards to our general press strategy. And I know you were all throwing events, but greater, much more to what Laura said. If you're not putting it on the events page, we don't know what's happening, and we don't know how we can plug that into our greater press strategy around things that you're doing. And I also saw the second part of your question, Kirsten, of are there freebies available for participants at the party? And that is to the greater sway question of we are providing things like stickers and lanyards and shirts that are available for takeaways to people at the events as well. So those are for you to help host it and then give away to participants who come.
Cool. We don't have any other questions. Does anybody have a burning question? We have about 4 minutes left. I'm sure there's a delay, and as soon as we stop broadcasting, there's going to be a burning question. Well, I guess I'll wrap it up then. I guess I want to just wrap this up by saying Mozilla and Webmaker and all of us on the Teach the Web team, we are highly accessible people. We exist and live on the web. You can contact any of us if you have questions or you're feeling stuck. Let us know. Let the whole community know. We're eager to help, and we're eager to kind of get Maker Party participants and get Maker Party partners and people who care about teaching and learning in the 21st century together and networked and, you know, benefiting from each other's experiences. So definitely reach out. Don't be scared. We're super friendly. I just did a really creepy eye thing when I said super friendly. Sorry about that. Other people are friendly. I'm kind of creepy.
We don't bite much.
We don't bite much. Yeah.
And I'm also going to put on the event page a couple of things we mentioned, such as our greater community listserv that we have, where you can reach out to maybe people that might be in the area that might want to help with your event, as well as our Google Plus page and how to reach us and share or what to share on Twitter.
Yep, and it's worth saying that Mozilla is a community and that we are paid contributors. That's our role. So we are here to support you. So make use of us.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks to my colleagues who joined me live. Otherwise, I would have been talking to myself. It's very strange to do webinars because you are not really sure that there are other people in the world at that moment, but when people actually drop in, makes me feel better. So thank you, Doug and Fuzzy Fox and Amira, for joining. I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Looking forward to seeing everybody at Maker Party. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us.